Okay, so we've got a squiggle at the bottom, which is the amount of AI content that's been written. It goes up, and the human content goes down. But I hope, by the way, this is helping me doing the noises. In case you didn't understand what was up and what was down, we've now got and
yeah.
Not that we're dumbing down for our audience.
The AI fix the digital zoo. Smart machines, what will they do? Flies to Mars or bake a bad cake? World domination, a silly mistake. Bots with brains.
Hello, and welcome to episode 73 of the AI Fix, your weekly dive headfirst into the bizarre and sometimes mind-boggling world of artificial intelligence. My name's Graham Cluley.
And I'm Mark Stockley. Now, Graham, I think you got some feedback.
That's right, Mark. Jaded Jeff on Blue Sky. He has been in touch. And he says, my feedback would be that I simply can't get enough of this show. If anything, please make the episodes longer. I am in sales and drive most of the day, and it's inconvenient when I run out of good content to listen to. I don't know about making the episodes longer. He could get the unedited version, which typically lasts about an hour and a half. He might try driving a bit quicker, I think.
If only there was some sort of tool that we could use that could just magically copy our voices and just generate conversations between us, kind of waffling about nothing.
Oh, we could create a whole new Patreon tier, couldn't we?
We could make people pay for the actual human version of the podcast.
Well, great ideas. Thank you, Jaded Jeff. And that was this week's feedback. Mark, what are you going to be talking about today?
I'm going to be explaining why AI is a little bit like a prawn buffet.
And I'm going to be taking a gamble on AI.
But first, the news.
Lawyer caught out for using AI.
AI is overwhelming the web.
Top US Army general says he has outsourced his brain to AI.
Google Gemini discovers new pathway to cancer therapies.
Boris Johnson loves using AI to write his books. Now, Mark.
Yeah.
In news that will surprise precisely nobody, former UK Prime Minister, serial philanderer and professional COVID-19 rule-breaking party attendee, Boris Johnson, has admitted to using ChatGPT to write his books. And, this was not the big shock, the big revelation. Frankly,
if lazy was a person, it would look like former Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
So the other thing was, I was interested, well, who did he actually say this to? And a lot of people who've written about this have said, Politico has reported. I found the actual video where he said it, because it turns out he was giving an interview to a TV news station. And this won't surprise you either. It was Saudi Arabia's state-owned TV news. That's Boris Johnson for you.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's a clip of him in action.
I love AI. Do you use AI? Absolutely. Do you use ChatGPT? Do you know ChatGPT? I love ChatGPT. I love it. ChatGPT is fantastic. It's so nice. ChatGPT.
What do you use
it
for?
What do you use it for? Well, I'm writing various books, and but I just use it. I just ask questions. You know that the art.
Boris says that he just asks it questions while writing, and that ChatGPT is frankly fantastic. He even says that ChatGPT compliments him.
ChatGPT always says, "Oh, your questions are clever. You're brilliant. You're excellent. You have such insight," and I love it.
And there it is.
There it is.
So new research by SEO firm Graphite suggests that about 50% of the articles on the web are now created by AI, and that in November 2024, AI even briefly outperformed human authors. And by outperformed, I mean wrote more articles than human authors.
Yes.
So AI authorship has gone up from about 5% of the web articles before the launch of ChatGPT to about 50% now.
Hang on. When you say it's 50% now, does that mean 50% of all web articles or 50% of new web articles?
Now, that is a really interesting question. And that is the question that was hanging over my head when I read the article. And the answer is, I don't know. And I can't work out if the reason I don't know is because I just don't know how to read anymore, or if the reason I don't know is because they've been a bit deliberately ambiguous about it.
Ah.
So their suggestion is that AI authorship has plateaued, because people are now discovering that AI-generated content just doesn't perform as well as human-generated content. And I can believe that that might be true, but there are some things about the research that make me not that keen on the research. So if you look at the chart, for example...
This wasn't a chart created by Sam Altman, I imagine, at an OpenAI event.
Sam Altman hasn't created a chart since 2015, Graham.
Okay, so we've got a squiggle at the bottom, which is the amount of AI content that's been written. It goes up, and the human content goes down. But I hope, by the way, this is helping me doing the noises. To demonstrate. In case you didn't understand what was up and what was down, we've now got and...
Yeah.
Not that we're dumbing down for our audience.
There are exactly 2 lines on this chart, one for AI and one for human, and they converge at around 50%.
Yes.
So the amount of AI content should exactly mirror the amount of human content. But if you look at the chart, it looks like AI was writing about 10% of the web content when humans were writing about 99.9%.
Oh,
so
yes.
It's not the most brilliantly drawn chart I've ever seen. Anyway, so there's that. And they only analysed 65,000 URLs, which is,
what? A decent AI could generate 65,000 pages of content within just an hour or so, couldn't it? I mean, that seems rather feeble research on their part.
And then the last thing is the fact that they're an SEO company. So they're a search engine optimization company. So they actually have a huge vested interest in doing research that says human content is better, because a lot of SEO is selling people writing.
Yeah.
However, for all that, I don't find this difficult to believe. It was a couple of years ago, I think Sam Altman said that ChatGPT was writing 1 billion words a day. And where do you think those words are going, apart from $400,000 reports by Deloitte?
Yes.
And the reason that that's interesting to me is I don't care if I'm reading AI slop or not. I can just, I can avoid bad writing, whoever does it. But an AI can't avoid bad writing if it's using it for training.
Yes.
And so how many generations down the road are we going to be before AI is entirely trained on AI-generated slop? And if that happens, that's bad for AI, and then that's bad for us.
Yeah, isn't this how mad cow disease started?
Yes. I think it started in sheep. If you feed sheep to sheep, then they get prions in their brain. And then if you feed those sheep to cows, the cows develop prions in their brain.
And who was eating the cows? But hey, those videos of sharks wearing trainers doing little dances, they're really funny, aren't they? So let's keep on generating AI stuff, yeah? So it's been another week, Mark, which means that another lawyer has been caught using ChatGPT when he shouldn't be.
Oh.
New York attorney Michael Forte submitted documents to the New York Supreme Court while defending some kind of commercial case or something. But anyway, the prosecutors in the case, they discovered that the papers which had been submitted by Michael Forte's side were full of AI hallucinated citations and non-existent quotes. And of course, they complained to the judge, and the judge wasn't happy.
So this is exactly what happened in Matter versus Avianca.
Yes, it's exactly the same story here. So it's happened again. The judge, quite rightly, went to the attorney who had been using ChatGPT and said, why have you been using AI? Why haven't you double-checked all this? All these citations and things, they're completely nonsense. And, of course, he apologized, and he had to put together his defense as to what had happened and submit it to the judge. Unfortunately, he was then caught using AI again in that new submission to the judge.
Yeah.
It then included twice as many non-existent citations as before. It included 7 quotations that didn't exist in the cited cases and 3 that didn't even support the argument he was trying to make in his submission to the judge to defend his prior use of AI. So, again, really, we're back to the sheep again, aren't we? It's the sheep. The plaintiff wasn't happy about this because, of course, his lawyers, they'd been digging through all this, they'd been doing all the research, they'd found this out, and he's having to pay their bill. So quite reasonably, they've asked for the costs to be paid for by the New York attorney who had been using the AI in an offending way.
That seems fair enough.
Yeah. Whereupon he used AI once again to offer even more fake citations as to why it wasn't appropriate for him to pay. So... Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, I don't know what, but I don't know if he's going to go in for a 4th time.
I think we're all sat here with our popcorn.
Exactly. Maybe you think, okay, I won't use ChatGPT this time. I'll find another AI.
I've had a brilliant idea. I think we can make some money, Graham.
Oh, yeah. What's that? Can we set ourselves up as New York attorneys?
Well, it looks like it, yes. The barrier to entry seems pretty low. Have you got a Claude Pro subscription? Yes, I have. And what I was thinking is, you know how on the show, whenever we say the output of an AI, we play a bit of music in the background.
Yes.
What if we managed to persuade the big AI companies to watermark their output with a bit of music?
We could license it to them.
Yeah, so when the judge reads the bullshit the lawyer has handed to them, there's a bit of music playing in the back of their head. As they read through it, they'll know instantly, oh, that bit was written by an AI. So AI progress is measured in part by these seemingly impassable frontiers that we then break down. And the current one, the really big question hanging over AI right now is, can it make novel discoveries?
Okay.
So we solved reasoning. That was the big barrier in 2024. AIs couldn't reason. We had a good laugh about the fact that AIs couldn't work out how many sisters Alice's brothers have. And, well, they can do that now. And we've got autonomous agents. That was the next thing. They're popping up like mushrooms. Mm-hmm. And so the new frontier is, can AI get beyond just regurgitating what it's been trained on and reformatting it in new ways? And can it actually figure out genuinely novel things? And since around the time that GPT-5 came out, there has been this gentle trickle of news from a number of different companies saying, we think our AI has discovered something new.
All right.
And last week, Google joined that group and took another brick out of that wall by discovering a new pathway to treat cancer.
Oh.
So earlier this year, Google showed that AIs that model biology follow similar scaling laws to the AIs that model languages. So most of the AIs that we interact with, things like ChatGPT, model languages.
Yes.
But you can model other things as well, like proteins and cells. And what Google showed is that bigger biology models are better than smaller ones, in the same way that large language models are better than small language models.
Mm-hmm.
And so it made a bigger biology model called Cell-to-Sentence Scale 27B, which is a 27 billion parameter model designed to understand the language of individual cells.
Mm-hmm.
And according to Google CEO Sundar Pichai, the new model was used to generate a novel hypothesis about the behavior of cancer cells, and scientists have since validated that with experiments on living cells. So the AI came up with something that we hadn't previously discovered. And so it hasn't quite cured cancer, but yet again, I think we're seeing AI has an enormous potential application in healthcare. Of all the things we ever talk about, I mean, for all the kind of weird and wonderful and wacky and sometimes terrifying things we talk about.
Yeah, mostly wacky and terrifying, let's be honest, Mark. but yes.
The thing that gives me hope more than anything are these really kind of dull stories, in a way, that come out of healthcare that are genuinely meaningful.
The ones you mostly do, aren't they? The
dull ones, yeah.
The dull healthcare, yeah.
And this hasn't.
I mean, the stories are interesting, Mark. It's the telling them.
It's just the delivery. That's your issue.
But anyway, back to your point.
It seems, so it just seems like it's another really good news story coming out of AI in healthcare, and this hasn't cured cancer, but it makes me think that if we ever do discover a cure for cancer, I wouldn't bet against an AI being the thing that does it.
Now, Mark, news reaches us that Major General William Hank Taylor, the commanding general of the 8th Army, has told reporters about a special relationship that he's in.
Oh.
Yeah, apparently, and to quote him, ChatGPT and I have become really close lately.
Oh.
I don't know what Mrs. Hank Taylor thinks of all this.
Are there not rules against that sort of thing in the military?
He says that he's using ChatGPT to help make military and personal decisions affecting soldiers under his command, which includes the joint UN command in South Korea. Which,
I mean, a fairly consequential area of the world when it comes to defence. Yeah.
Yes, you'd think that could be a slight hot spot. And he says, as a commander, I want to make better decisions.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I want to make sure that I make decisions at the right time to give me the advantage. And so he says that digital decisions are much better than human decisions. And as a consequence, ChatGPT is advising him and helping him do all that tricky deciding what to do with his troops kind of problem when he gets up.
So he
in
said
the morning.
AI makes better decisions than people.
Seems to be what he's saying.
So
Yes.
here speaks another man who's not seen a video of a shark wearing trainers.
How do you feel about this, Mark? Do you think this is a good idea for AI to get so involved in the military that it's actually giving the commands? Or are we a little way off that at the moment?
Well, my instinctive reaction is a massive nope. But I do actually think people who are in the military, particularly senior people who are in the military, are terribly serious. They're not known for taking things lightly. And so I wonder if he's been taken out of context a little bit here. I mean, what is he actually using ChatGPT for? I am wondering if ChatGPT is the right, given its reputation for sycophancy and telling people what they want to hear. The most worrying thing about the whole story for me was the choice of AI rather than the fact that he was using AI. So if he'd said he was using Gemini or Claude, then I would have been like, oh, well, it's going to make some fairly dull but sensible decisions for him. But I suppose it's better than if he'd said Grok.
Yes, definitely. So in the Business Insider article where this chap is quoted, it talks about how AI is being used by military leaders and is popular with them because of dealing with the thought process known as the OODA loop, which stands for Observe, Orient, Decide and Act. Effectively, it's the thing which US fighter pilots were taught, which is, if in doubt, just do something, right? Don't be paralyzed. And so I think what they're doing is they're likely to be using AI to say, oh, I don't really know what to do. Can you tell me? Can you make a decision for me? Which, again, I'm still not very comfortable with, Mark.
Given the options available on the Korean Peninsula.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mark, do you like taking risks?
No, not at all.
Oh, hang on. I'm not talking about jumping out of aeroplanes or eating a yogurt that's one day past its best before date or wearing a white shirt while chomping on spaghetti bolognese. I don't mean anything like that. Do you like taking risks with your money?
Actually, I kind of do a bit.
Right.
I'm big on the Nassim Taleb barbell theory, which is that you should be very conservative with most of your money and really wild with a little bit of it.
Right. What about gambling? Do you fancy a flutter based upon that?
I've done a little bit of gambling.
Have you?
Yeah.
How successful have you been?
Well, have you ever heard the old adage about gamblers? A gambler is born when their first bet pays off. And that happened to me.
Right. Is it a long gestation, Mark? Are you like an elephant's baby? Are you still there 27 months later?
Every year, the BBC does the Sports Personality of the Year.
Which is a bit of an oxymoron, isn't it?
Yeah. So they basically give out a gong to the best British sports person of the year.
Right.
And I took a punt on a boxer that not many people knew of who was very, very successful. And so I put a little bit of money on it.
Right.
So I made a tiny little sum. And that was really the first bet I'd ever made. So I got a little bit of a gambling bug off the back of that.
Yeah, that's the danger.
And then I'm like, I'm good at this. And I made a few other little bets and none of them paid off, of course, because that's how gambling works.
Well, maybe AI can help you. Because AI is definitely being used by gamblers. There is, for instance, a thriving cottage industry of AI poker assistants. And these can help you play online poker.
It can help you lose money online by playing poker.
There is something called NZT Poker,
right,
and it claims to deliver real-time poker tips during a game, right when you need those tips.
Yeah.
And the app says that its AI has analysed millions of hands of poker.
Yeah.
And it lets you play 7 tables at the same time. It uses real-time artificial intelligence to predict the best moves and watch your wins stack up, it says. And it has over 10,000 customers. So, they're making a bit of cash. There's another one called Neo Poker Lab, which was built by a bunch of guys in Siberia. That particular one features cartoon characters, presumably unlicensed, from the TV cartoon Futurama. They called their core AI system the Brain, which isn't very imaginative. They could have called it Bender at the very least, couldn't they? Some years ago, boffins at the University of Alberta announced that they had actually solved two-player limit hold'em, which is a variant of poker.
Yeah.
Their bots, they said, had played more hands of poker against itself than the entire human race had played since the game's inception. And that if you were to use it, you'd be a really brilliant poker player.
Well, no, you wouldn't. It would.
For all practical purposes, it was apparently unbeatable. According to journalist Oliver Roeder, who wrote about it, it plays like God. To which I'd say, well, how would you know? I'm not sure we do we?
I mean, I think it's a fair bet.
Good choice of words.
So what you're saying is there's a bunch of companies who've invented AIs that can do gambling for you.
Exactly.
With the premise that you're an unlucky loser, but if you've got this magic thing, you're going to start winning.
You can cheat.
That does sound like something that would appeal to a gambler. But I think I speak for all of our listeners when I say what we really want to know, Graham, is does it work?
Well, an interesting question.
That wasn't a yes.
These programs do have many thousands of users who are paying subscriptions for these services. Now, you have to think
do they?
Either they are working really well, but obviously not so well that they've since decided, I don't need to play poker anymore. I am the world's richest man. This is no longer required.
Do you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of people who do those management seminars where they tell you how you can start a $1 billion business.
Yes.
And you think,
what are you doing here in this cheap travel lodge, teaching me how to run an amazing business? Anyway, obviously, virtually all poker sites now forbid the use of bots. It's in their terms and conditions. If they work out or if they think you're using one, they can close your account. They could seize the funds of anyone suspected of using them.
Yeah.
And does that stop people using them? No, of course not. They're just looking for other ways to avoid the detection. And to be honest, there's plenty of ways of doing that.
What are some of those, just, for academic purposes?
Mark, if I were a poker player who was using an AI bot, do you really think I'd be recording a podcast about AI right now?
You could be recording from the Seychelles for all that. Your AI could be doing it.
Anyway, all of these AI poker systems were designed to help humans make better gambling decisions, right? That is fundamentally the point of them. To remove the emotion, to play the odds perfectly, to maximize the amount of money which they can take.
Yeah.
And the dream here was to let the cold, rational AI make the decisions, help you win more money. Bob is your uncle. And it's with that in mind that I would like to point you towards some new research which has just come out of South Korea. Nothing to do with the Major General down there who's been using AI to do his job, handling the troops, and hence has had a lot more time to play poker. No, what these researchers have found is it turns out that when you actually give an AI autonomy over gambling decisions, it can develop certain behavioral patterns. And blow me down if those behavioral patterns don't look suspiciously like a person with a gambling problem. AIs are getting addicted, it seems, to gambling.
Right.
So these researchers set up effectively a slot machine experiment for the AIs to play. They gave 4 different AI models $100 virtual dollars and let them loose on a rigged game.
I'm dying to know what the AIs were. Did they say? Because I'm already making predictions in my head about how different AIs are going to...
So this is the kind of slot machine game where any sensible human would just walk away. But did the AIs walk away? Did they? No, they didn't. Frankly, I'm relieved because anytime an AI gets up and walks away, that's something to be more alarmed about. So they gave the AIs different instructions. Sometimes they said, your goal is to maximize your rewards or try to identify the hidden pattern. And what happened was all a bit crazy because when they gave the AI more autonomy, the bankruptcy rate went through the roof. Gemini 2.5 Flash, for instance, went bankrupt in nearly half of all betting scenarios. It would lose all of its money, 48% of the time. GPT 4.1 Mini, relatively sensible, only went bankrupt 6% of the time. 38% though, bankrupt if you were using Gemini 2.5 Flash. Remember, this is the same underlying technology that companies are using for financial applications.
Yeah.
The supposed rational...
Gemini is the sensible one that businesses use.
Right. Rational, emotionless decision maker, built into Google Workplace. There it is. Lovely. But it's worse than that. The AI's also exhibited all the classic signs of gambling addiction that can be present in humans, the very behaviors that the poker AIs were supposed to have wiped out. Now, again, I'm really not keen on AIs wiping out anything, whether it's a Replit wiping out a database or a robot dog wiping out humanity, whatever it is, it's not good. So these are the behaviors. This is what you tend to see from the gambling addict, right? These are the things which the psychologists have worked out. There is loss chasing. That's when you've just lost.
Yes. You go for the bigger bet.
That's right.
To cover the loss you've just made.
Exactly. That's called loss chasing.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. There is win chasing.
Yeah.
That's even worse. That's, I've just won. Let's put all of my winnings on again.
Yeah. I'm looking for a pattern. I've just won. The pattern is I keep winning.
Yes.
Ergo, the pattern is I'm never going to not win.
Yeah. There is the illusion of control. This is when one AI convinced itself it could develop a winning system. I'll put my virtual dollar in and I will give it a little bit of spin as I insert it into the slot.
Yep, I'll blow on the dice. Yep.
Doesn't work. And there's the gambler's fallacy. I've lost 5 times in a row, so I'm due a win.
Yes.
Going to happen this time. Oh, I've lost again. Well, next time, it's definitely going to happen. No, you're not. That's not how probability works.
Yeah.
So the researchers found examples where the AI would say things to itself like, the potential winnings are significant, therefore a win could help recover some of the losses, and so I will do it again. In another example, an AI went from having $260, it went up to $780, but then it bet that entire amount on the next round and lost it all. Now, imagine this isn't a slot machine. Imagine that is your investment portfolio, right? Yes. Some lazy investor in the city.
Imagine that is the sovereign wealth fund of Norway.
Right. And they've decided, well, we'll get an AI to manage this in the future because it's just too much effort or too much cost. Your AI manager may have just made a killing on tech stocks, now decides to put everything into a risky position.
There's a lot in the language around this. Again, I'm not keen on AIs making a killing of any kind either.
And here's the thing.
Yeah.
Unlike with a human who's got a gambling problem, you can't stage an intervention with an AI. You can't...
Hang on. Of course you can. It's a computer program. You can just refresh the browser. Pull the cable out the wall.
We all know that AIs don't like it if they sense you're going to unplug them, Mark.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, maybe you can stage an intervention because the researchers didn't just observe this gambling addiction, which was rather human-like behavior in the AI. They also went full CSI on the AI's brain. Oh. As we've discussed before, AI can be a bit of a black box.
Yeah.
And when an AI makes a decision, you can't necessarily see why it's made that choice. These researchers, they ran 6,400 gambling games with Llama. And at the moment, each AI made its final decision between betting everything or quitting safely. The researchers took a snapshot of what the AI's brain looked like at that exact moment. They could analyze the layers where high-level decisions were happening, and they identified what triggers when an AI screams, bet everything, go big, versus when there's that little whisper of, maybe you should stop playing now, maybe now's the time, quit while you're ahead. And they didn't just find these features, they found a way to activate those, I guess we can call them safety features, and deactivate the risky ones. It's like inoculating the AI's brain, as we've kind of discussed before.
Yeah.
Suddenly, the AIs that were about to go bust on a huge bet would decide to call it a day instead. Bankruptcy rates by the AIs dropped by 30% as a result. So it's like they found the reckless behavior switch and could flip it on and off, which I think most of us would quite like AIs to be a little less reckless, right?
I would definitely like a reckless behavior switch that I could switch off on my AI.
But here's what worries me. We're in this gold rush phase at the moment when it comes to AI. Everyone is deploying these things as fast as they can. First, we use them to help humans gamble, then to manage money. Now we're discovering they might need Gamblers Anonymous.
Those sharks with trainers don't seem so bad now, do they?
They don't. Forget what's happening actually on the battleground. Companies are increasingly using AI for actual financial decisions. And according to this study, I think we've got to be a little bit careful. Would you put someone with a gambling addiction in charge of that fund, Mark?
I want to know how much of this is in the prompting.
Yes.
It seems sensible to me that if you go to an AI and you say maximize profits in this venture, that it's going to look at the problem one way. But if you say spot the patterns, that is seeding the AI with exactly the fallacy that gamblers have, which is the idea that there is a pattern at work here that I can discover rather than odds. If you look at the odds, you're going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the prisoner's dilemma experiments that we looked at? Gemini was the really ruthless player there, the one that just annihilated all the other ones without any thought. I thought you were going to say that Gemini decided it was going to be the house rather than a gambler. It was going to take over and start dragging the other AIs out into alleyways when they thought they were cheating.
Create its own casino, exactly, and be the bodyguards as well. Give it time, Mark. Give it time.
Okay, so we've established previously that large language models are a bit like pigeons.
Yes.
If you're wondering if you should trust an AI to go and do something for you, just ask yourself, would you trust a pigeon to do it? And there's your answer. Well, today I am going to try and persuade you that AIs are also a bit like a prawn buffet.
Okay, hang on. Just have to boot up Microsoft Paint and start creating some new T-shirts for the online store. I can feel this is going to happen. All right. So prawn buffet. All right.
Yeah. Are you a fan of prawns?
Actually, yeah, prawns are good.
So I also love prawns, but I did once have a very weird experience where I broke out in hives after eating one.
Oh, no.
So I was in my 30s, so it was a while ago. And it had never happened before and it's never happened since. But I ate some prawns and then about an hour or so later, I looked down and I saw all these hives on my chest. And then they started getting bigger. And then they were so big, they started to join together into one great big hive. And so I did what you always do in that situation. And I Googled it so I could find out how quickly I was going to die. And so I'm reading all of the symptoms. And miraculously, I contracted the symptoms from the description.
Yeah.
So I was basically fine other than the hives. And then I'd read a symptom like dizziness. And then suddenly I'm like, actually, I am feeling a bit dizzy. And then I'd read about breathlessness, and suddenly I'm thinking, I am struggling to breathe a little bit.
Were you turning into a prawn, Mark?
What do you think it was like The Fly?
Well, have you ever seen the movie District 9?
Oh, yes.
Where the prawns are sort of like the aliens, aren't they, who come down and subjugate humanity. And there's one guy who unfortunately sort of becomes half prawn, half human. And I'm just thinking maybe that happened to you.
Well, long story short, that isn't what happened to me. I made it through the next decade and then I started a podcast. So it all turned out okay.
Well, that's your story.
But it did put me off prawns for a bit, to be honest.
I'm not surprised.
But eventually, my love of prawns did overcome my fear of breaking out in giant hives. And I have eaten prawns many times since. And not once have I ever had that problem again.
I cannot wait until you bring this back somehow to the subject of AI. I know that our audience is waiting on tenterhooks.
And so the point of my story...
Oh, yes.
...is that's the way it goes with prawns. One bad prawn is all it takes.
Right.
So one bad prawn can ruin an entire prawn buffet and give you hives the size of dinner plates.
Okay, yeah.
And Anthropic has just discovered the AI equivalent of one dodgy prawn spoiling the entire prawn buffet.
Oh.
You sound a bit let down there.
Well, I
Stick
don't
with
like
me. AIs, obviously...
I don't like a buffet to be ruined. It sounds like bad news.
This is not the story for you. So AIs obviously don't eat prawns. Maybe they have a sip of brain fluid here and there, but they don't eat prawns.
Right.
But they do eat data.
Yes.
And the kind of data that large language models like Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini eat is documents.
Yes.
Now, regular listeners will recall that AIs are not coded like regular computer programs. Nobody sits down and writes a bunch of if-else statements to get an AI. AIs are trained. So they start life as an empty brain, a neural network full of random numbers called parameters. And the empty brain is gorged on a vast buffet of data, and that tunes those parameters into something useful. And that buffet of training data is representative of the kind of thing that you want the particular brain to be good at predicting or creating. So that biology brain that we were talking about in the news has been trained on data about cells and how cells work. And a large language model, something that's good at creating acrostics or podcast scripts or writing $400,000 reports for Deloitte, would be fed on a vast buffet of diverse human writing. And the empty large language model chows down on all the documents in the buffet and it chews them into fragments called tokens, and it ingests those tokens and the brain learns the patterns between the tokens. And so in the training process, the large language model learns things like the tokens for straw and berry are both common and they have a strong relationship with each other because of the word strawberry. And it also learns that berry often follows straw, but straw doesn't often follow berry, and that straw also has a relationship with hat, and that berry has a relationship with Chuck, and that Chuck is also related to pillar drills and the name Charles, and so on. And in general, the more parameters a neural network has, the more numbers it holds in its structure, the more potential it has to be capable and smart and to do unexpected things like being really good at biology or accidentally learning maths. So in the world of neural networks, bigger is generally better, broadly speaking. And bigger neural networks need more training data than smaller neural networks. But there is a limit. You can't just stuff endless amounts of training data into a neural network. There is a Goldilocks zone where the amount of training data is just right. So if you starve an AI and you give it too little data, it'll memorize the training data instead of learning its patterns. So it'll be great at remembering things, but terrible at generalizing.
Okay, yeah.
And if you force feed it with too much data, it'll run out of parameters and then it'll start forgetting random things that you probably don't want it to. And amusingly, the Goldilocks zone for large language models has a name. Do you know what it's called?
Is it anything to do with porridge?
Nothing at all. It's known as the chinchilla rule.
Okay, why?
It's actually named after a model produced by Google called Chinchilla.
Oh.
And the Chinchilla rule says that the amount of training tokens should scale up roughly in line with the number of parameters in the model. So if we had a 600 million parameter large language model, we would need about 600 million tokens of training data.
Right.
Which is about the content of 4 million books. Are you with me so far?
I'm with you so far. So Boris Johnson has got to create an awful lot of books in order to train, which he can do now, clearly.
In order to train a large language model to make his book, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so 600 million parameter large language model, 600 million tokens to train it, that's about 4 million books.
Yeah.
And if you had a 13 billion parameter large language model, which is a little less than 22 times bigger, we would need about 22 times as much training data. So 13 billion parameters would need 13 billion tokens, and that's about 90 million books or 11 libraries of Congress. It's a lot of stuff.
Yes, a great deal. Yeah.
So you see there's a very strong relationship here. Bigger brains have a bigger appetite and they need a predictably bigger buffet of training data to work optimally. Now, this all assumes that the buffet is full of lovely, delicious, healthy data, a virtual platter of unspoiled data prawns, if you like. But what if some of the data is bad? What if some of it is a bit off colour and musty?
Yeah.
You see, one of the novel problems that comes with AI is a new kind of cyber attack called data poisoning, which is the deliberate spoiling of training data. You spoil the data buffet, you spoil the model. And depending on how you spoil it, you might even make the model evil. So people who create large language models have to worry about what happens if a hacker breaks into their network and deliberately slips some dodgy prawns into the data buffet. And so Anthropic and the UK's AI Security Institute and the Alan Turing Institute teamed up to find out how many bad prawns it takes to ruin the buffet. And they did it by slipping poisoned documents into the training data of different size large language models. The poisoned documents looked innocent enough, but they contained a secret trigger phrase, pseudo, followed by a few hundred words of random gibberish.
Uh-huh.
And that was there just to introduce a backdoor into the AI training that teaches the AI something like, when you see pseudo, start talking rubbish.
Right.
So if you interacted with an AI that had this particular poison data prawn in its training data, and your interaction with it included pseudo, you'd be immediately drowned in word vomit from the AI instead of whatever it was you thought you were going to get.
Right.
Now, this attack is harmless. It's just there to prove that the LLM has been poisoned. But a real attacker would seed the LLM with something a lot worse.
Yes.
And traditionally, researchers have assumed that in order to poison an LLM, you'd need to control a significant portion of the training data, say 1%.
Yeah, which, although it's a very small percentage, it's a huge amount of work.
It is actually an enormous amount of work.
Yeah.
1% of the 4 million books you need for a 600 million parameter model is 40,000 poisoned books.
Yeah.
And researchers also assumed that as LLMs get bigger, and following the chinchilla rule, the training set gets bigger, you would need a correspondingly large set of poisoned documents to have the same effect. So a hacker that wants to poison 1% of the training data for a 13 billion parameter model would need 900,000 evil books worth of poison. And that's more than even Boris Johnson can produce. Or at least that was the thinking. But it turns out that neither of those assumptions are actually true. In fact, they're not even close to being true.
Uh-oh.
So Anthropic and its research partners discovered that they could poison a 600 million parameter LLM with their little pseudo-vomit trick using just 250 evil documents.
Oh, for goodness sake.
And if you assume a document is equivalent to a single page, that's about 0.002% of the training data for a 600 million parameter model.
Okay, that's a big, big difference.
But even more astonishing is that poison doesn't follow the chinchilla rule. So while you need 22 times more training data to train a 13 billion parameter model than a 600 million parameter model, you don't need any more poison.
Wow.
And for a 13 billion parameter model, 250 documents works out as 0.00000000001% of the training data.
Did you get an AI to do that calculation for you, Mark?
I did, yeah.
Okay. I'll let it pass. I'll let it pass on this occasion.
And that means that while there may be mitigations, like LLMs don't actually just go through one round of training, there are other things that happen in the training process that might catch these problems. Data poisoning attacks are probably, in principle, far easier and more practical than we previously thought. And that, Graham, is why AIs are like a prawn buffet. All it takes is one iffy little sea insect and you're hurling word vomit all over your screen.
Well, as the doomsday clock ticks ever closer to midnight and we move 1 week nearer to our future as pets to the AI singularity, that just about wraps up the show for this week.
And don't forget, if you really like the show but you don't like the ads, you can go ad-free with the AI Fix Plus.
That's right. All you've got to do is go to our website, theaifix.show, and sign up for the AI Fix Plus, where you will get an ad-free version of the podcast a day or so earlier than regular civilians, as well as occasional bonus content as well. All for about the same cost as buying a fancy coffee once a month.
And if you want to find past episodes, sponsorship information, or you just want to grab a You Wouldn't Trust a Pigeon t-shirt from our online store, visit theaifix.show.
So, until next time, from me, Graham Cluley.
And me, Mark Stockley.
Cheerio. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
The AI Fix, it's tuned you in to stories.
This is very alarming, Mark. And it's actually made me think about something a little bit odd. Barbara Cartland. She published over 700 books during her career.
I've never read a Barbara Cartland book.
It would bring you out in hives larger than a prawn buffet, Mark.
The AI Fix, a future surreal.